For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jamie Arns. I'm the National Staffing Manager for Everest Recruiting. I'm also the Treasurer of the Florida Staffing Association and the Orlando Social Committee Co-Director. I'm very excited to introduce our next guest speaker. He's not only a partner of Everest Recruiting, he's a dear friend. Jack is extremely dynamic, professional, positive, and very strategic for providing staffing projections. Jack and his team at Staffing Future have built over 600 websites for staffing agencies and deployed innovative technology solutions via third-party vendors. Without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Jack Copeland from Staffing Future.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Hi, guys, and thanks for the lovely intro. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the opportunity to present to you guys today as well, so thanks for having me. So we're going to talk today about the future of staffing websites very quickly, and Jamie's kind of already done it for me, but I'm the CEO and co-founder of Staffing Future, and what we do is we build websites that really lean on technology and automation to help staffing companies with client and candidate leads. So what we're going to go through today is really where the future of staffing websites are going. But before we do that, we're going to take a sort of step back and look at what's the difference between, what I consider a sort of staffing website and something that's really maybe a little bit more simple and more of just a business card. So what's the difference between a staffing website and a business card website? So when I say a business card website, I mean something that really isn't necessarily super engaging and is kind of basic and really just something maybe people knocked up on Wix or something like that for the purpose of just legitimizing who they are and that they do sort of exist as a business, maybe showing their logo and a couple of pages. So, something like that versus having a staffing website of today or of the last 5 years, really the difference you're going to see in a staffing specific website is something that serves content for clients and candidates respectively. So it's going to focus on really segmenting that user journey at a client level, at a candidate level, provide a lot of different methods for those clients and candidates to engage and start to understand about your business. So focusing on your niche, focusing on your candidate process and why they should work with your business versus anyone else, what's special about your experience. And then exactly the same on the candidate side, how you understand your niche, how you understand your market, what's unique about you guys. Because fundamentally, let's be honest, we're all kind of selling the same thing in the human business, but all of you have really unique niches and value propositions. So it's about making sure that you're clear about that and providing good content as well around sort of blogs or lead magnets, which could be little ebooks about, top 10 interview tips or, how to go through the hiring process effectively. The other thing that you're going to see, from a sort of staffing specific website today is something that provides a lot of different methods for driving traffic and then engaging that traffic and trying to convert it. So not just a website filled with content, but areas in which I can, onboard, I can apply, I can submit a resume, I can sign up for a job alert, I can submit an actual lead form as a client, perhaps with some information, versus something that just sort of has a phone number and an email address. But also, and the reason that's important is because that just drives conversion. We live in a world where the easier you make it for someone to do something, the more likely they are to do it. So it's very important to have lots of different ways for people to engage on your website. And a big part of that is, what may seem obvious, but listing open jobs and positions. And, that's, once again, is just kind of the basics, and we're going to go into sort of where things are going over the next 10 years. But it's very important to make sure you have your positions listed. And it's really important to make sure that they're actually listed on the technical architecture of the site. So a lot of people may thinking, oh yeah, I've got that box ticked. I have the Bullhorn career portal, I have the Crelate career portal, I have the PC Recruiter career portal, and they list all of the jobs on my site. The reality is most of those ATS integrations that are kind of out the box don't actually list the jobs technically on your site. So they are visible on your site if someone is already there, but they don't actually live within the site's infrastructure. Why is that important? because if you look at most of our sites, 90% of traffic doesn't arrive on the homepage. It arrives from Google, it arrives from Indeed, it arrives from LinkedIn, Facebook, people's email signatures, social profiles. If your jobs are not living within the technical infrastructure of your site, it's not visible to any of those things, to the point that you could literally Google the exact entire job description that you wrote, and it won't come up because it's just not visible to anyone unless they're on your homepage. And to be on your homepage, they need to already know who you are. And of course, unless you're, Adecco or Manpower, that can be a real challenge. And actually, at the end, if this interests anyone, I'm more than happy. Just bring it up in the questions to dive out of this presentation and just show you how to understand if your jobs are in fact living on the technical infrastructure of your site or not, and some of the benefits of that. And then the final thing that you're going to see from sort of most staffing websites versus something that's maybe made in-house or made locally is something that integrates with your ATS and perhaps some of your other technology. So it might be pushing your jobs to Indeed or ZipRecruiter. You might be sharing your jobs on LinkedIn. And of course, in most cases, it's going to integrate with your ATS so that the jobs are coming out and the candidates are going back in. So why is it important to even kind of get the basics right? Well, if you think about the way that we buy today, people research before they buy. It's very easy when someone's emailing you, cold calling you, to go to Google, to make snap judgments based on LinkedIn profiles. Those first impressions really count. And no one really buys from one touch point anymore. It's great if you can rank well in Google. It's great if you can present to people. It's great if you can meet them at a conference, cold call them, email them. But often people make buying decisions from a multitude of these points, or they validate their decision to buy by going out and checking out people's websites, checking out their LinkedIn profiles. It's very, very important to be on point with that. And the phrase I always use is, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how much more effective any of your outbound activities would be if you had a more impressive site or a more impressive sort of branding experience, validating the message that you are going outbound with when you make your outbound calls, your outbound emails, when you meet people networking. The other thing that's important is that you own your own brand and you own that message and experience. So, referrals are great, but it's always going to be what other people are talking about. It's not a chance for you to really double down and explain who you are. Indeed, ZipRecruiter, job boards, they're great, but you're just spinning your wheels. You're always going to be paying again for more candidates, You use them up, you pay for more. In the same way that you have applicant tracking system to store and reuse those candidates, if you are getting traffic to your site and that traffic will come back, you don't have to keep on paying for it. So it's not like an application where you pay every time. There's also different methods for them to engage. So it's moving away from this whole right time, right place. No one will apply to your job in Indeed unless they're looking for that job at that moment. Whereas people may well come to your site and read information about you as a passive candidate or as a prospective client, even if they're not ready to buy right now. The other thing that's important is to have efficient workflows to apply, to qualify, to onboard. And that's really just to save you time, stop dealing with emails that are getting lost, taking, applications, having to reach out to them to ask questions that they could have filled in automatically, and really just trying to make the overall thing very efficient. And then, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, this helps all of your other sales and marketing efforts. So, if you're doing proactive messages on LinkedIn, they're going to look at your LinkedIn profile, then they might look at your company profile, then they might look at your website. So just making sure all of that stays on point is really going to add more value and make it bigger than the sum of its parts for any outbound activity by phone, by email, by social. So, now that we've talked a little bit about the basics, how do we look to what's next? And for me, one of the things that is very easy to do when looking to the future of any staffing website is to look at other industries that have evolved more effectively online. We have, since the pandemic, really had a whole load of companies really had to move online very, very quickly. Some were already there. Others were very reliant on face-to-face meetings and on manual paperwork. But there are plenty of websites that have been evolving, or industry websites that have been evolving for years and years in other markets that are entirely based. So the best example I always think of is an e-commerce website. So if you want to know where we're going to go in the next 5-10 years, it's good to sort of look at where something like an Amazon or any kind of Shopify-based website lives today in the e-commerce world, or to look at elite billion-dollar businesses that are providing loans and things like that. So if we look 10 years ago at these type of websites, what we saw is that they were maybe similar to some of where our websites are today. So they weren't mobile optimized in a lot of cases. It was very difficult to do anything by mobile. They were slow. They didn't make it very easy for you to do what they wanted you to do. Traffic was largely direct to source. So remember, you used to type in the URL, or you might come from Google, whereas now you're sort of landing direct from social media and from other avenues where you're spending your time. Also, they're a bit of an information black hole. So 10 years ago, if I wanted to apply a loan, I would put loads of information in about my loan, and they would go, thanks very much, your form has been submitted. Or if I wanted to go and sign up for buying some trainers, for example, it would ask for all of the information in one long form. It would say, okay, cool, you want to buy these trainers. Now give us your first name, your last name, your email address, and your credit card information, sort of all in one hit. So how has this progressed? Well, first off, we're seeing a lot of indirect traffic. So my trainer analogy, nowadays, it's not even going to the trainer shop online. You're scrolling through Instagram or you're scrolling through Facebook. It knows that you've been looking at trainers that maybe you saw come up on your feed, that you might be in the market for some. It's directly advertising that type of shoe to you. And it's very easy on your mobile device to just in one click land right in that experience and go through and look at purchasing that. Exactly the same with the sort of long form apply, think about, or the long form, in this case, purchasing of an item. Websites these days don't let you put something in your basket and then wait for you to check out. The entire website is screaming for you in the e-commerce world. Give us your email address, because we're already profiling you. We already know what trainers you're looking at. We already perhaps know what sizes you want. And if we can get your email address, then even if you're not ready to buy them now, we can keep calling you back when you are in that buying cycle, which of course in our world would be when you are ready to apply or when you are ready to submit a lead. It's a similar concept. So in the same way, you see things like, don't forget to check out your cart, or here's 20% off, or here's the best way to clean your trainers, or here's the new version of trainers that we have. All of these things can be applied to our industry in terms of not just the candidate, you do all the work. It's really difficult for you to apply or onboard, or expecting them to jump through hoops. But also moving away from, do you want this exact job now? And instead being more of a, how do you engage with our brand, and how do you work with us? The same thing with something like instant answers and feedback. So I see a lot of websites where they require a candidate to complete, an application that frankly might take them 5 or 6 minutes. I fully appreciate it's hard work for you guys to take every single phone call and expect you to ring up every single candidate, especially if you're in a more transactional type of staffing. But at the same time, if you look at anything to do with marketing, the easier you make it for someone to do something, the more likely they are to do it. So there's really no point in spending good money, time and effort with Indeed and other sources on driving that traffic if you're making it very hard for a candidate to apply or to onboard because your experience is poor or you're asking too much information. And at the same time, it's important, if possible, to give someone some feedback. So if I applied for a loan today and I spent 10 minutes applying for that loan, I would expect to either be told I'm approved or that I will get a call and be notified whether I'm approved, and if not, why I'm not approved. Too many of our sites expect people to spend 10 minutes and then it's just a complete information black hole. And obviously that's a horrible experience. Why would I refer someone to that? The other thing that we see is really that workflow integration. So I kind of touched on it before. It's about trying to, wherever possible, capture that candidate information, understand who that candidate is, what their IP address is, or what that client is, what they're looking at, and put that into a technology workflow that re-engages and retargets. So for example, For whatever reason, we've got an excuse to capture their email address. Would you like to be notified about jobs in the future? Or would you like to download this blog about the, technology salaries in your niche market that we've spent some time investing in? Well, in that case, you have to give us your email address, and that's absolutely fine. But that email address then automatically goes into nurturing campaigns that keep them informed about your business, why you're the best at what you do, what jobs and positions you have available, what top talent and candidates you have available, and is then bringing those people back. So we're getting the best results. So really, when we look at the future of a staffing website from a candidate point of view, it's about opening up the top of the funnel. So so many people just focus on full application or even go straight to onboarding, and then after this, they're going through to deployment and submission and things like that, and that's great. But you can't skip every step. And sometimes in wonderful worlds, you will have people arrive from a source, and then we'll know what they're doing because they look at a few pages, and they'll begin an apply workflow, and then they'll complete onboarding, and we'll get them deployed very, very quickly. But there are other times when someone might live on the site and then immediately leave. And actually, or not necessarily immediately leave, but leave after a couple of minutes. Actually, that is by far and away the most likely scenario. Any website is really the leakiest boat in the world. A really good website is converting, maybe 10% of total traffic. So 90% of your traffic at best is arriving and then leaving. And that's why it's really important to focus on the message that you're giving that traffic, so that it may well come back, but also to try and do everything that you can to bring that traffic back. So in the future of staffing websites from a candidate point of view, or even from a client point of view, we're driving traffic in from places like Google, from Google for Jobs, from maybe social channels, from Indeed, from ZipRecruiter, but we're then understanding that traffic's behavior. So we know, are they looking at client pages on the website where we talk about what an amazing job we do for our clients, reading case studies? We're able to track that. So we understand that that's likely to be a client. If they're maybe on the candidate side, are they super actively looking for jobs right now? Or are they just reading blogs and niche information about us, and therefore they're a more passive candidate? We then want to focus on just trying to get a little bit of information so that if they don't apply to a job, we can bring them back. So that could be configuring an alert about other jobs in the future. It could be just saying, hey, submit your information for a call, or engaging with a chatbot. One of the things that we're in the process of releasing that we're really excited about is the ability to push notify people in browser. So if you think about Facebook, sometimes you get the little click noise when you've got a little alert, or Slack, you get a little click noise in your browser that you click that says, hey, there's a new notification. We can start doing that with our clients' websites and say, look, you looked at Java developer positions. There are new Java developer positions available on Everest Recruiting. Would you like to take a look? So just giving a softer methodology to engage and sort of get people into that workflow. And then after that is really when we're starting to focus on, we get the full application, we get them to apply to that job, integrate it with the applicant tracking system. Application and onboarding are separate things. Application and registration are separate things. Very important. We do have some worlds like light industrial where really they are sort of seamlessly connected, but just make sure that you are capturing some of the candidate data early on and not expecting someone to complete a 10-minute process. And if they don't complete all of it, we get absolutely nothing, because we have seen apply processes where someone has clicked apply and 50% of the time they convert. And we have seen apply processes where people click apply and 2% of the time they convert. So if you think about the fact that you are investing time and energy and money on trying to drive people to apply or to register, the difference between even just a 20% conversion and a 10% is huge. We have customers where we've doubled their conversion from Indeed, and that means they can cut their budget in half, or they can have twice as many candidates without a single person landing on their site. So it's really important to think about all of these different elements. So in terms of top of the funnel re-engagement, what have we got? Well, we've got email nurturing. So integrating with, you know, a HubSpot or MailChimp, or integrating with something industry specific. So Bullhorn has bought Fish. I'm sure most of you have got emails from Sense. They raised a lot of money and have been contacting a lot of the industry. So something that is going to bring people back and remind them, look, we've got jobs, we've got positions, we're great in our niche. Here's what's going on at Everest Recruiting. Here's some great reviews, some great case studies. Here's some wonderful blogs. You've also got, you know, text messaging and automation. So you've got great tools like Techstars, which will integrate with a lot of ATS systems. You've got the ability for people to have conversations with chatbots on the site, or via text message as well. So there's been some, you know, really interesting campaigns where people have been even just posting manually sort of outside large factories, you know, text jobs to 8066, and then it's taken over by a live chat. Or it's taken over by a chatbot. It's all this sort of top of the funnel. It's very easy to do that type stuff. Obviously, you've got the in-browser notifications that we talked about, but you've also got what we call retargeting pay-per-click campaigns. And that's where if we identify, or if you identify that someone is a real sort of high value lead, you can run a pay-per-click campaign just to bring back that individual. So for example, if you discover that there's 20 people that have spent a lot of time on your client solutions, why work with us at Everest Recruiting, you can target $100 a month onto just advertising Everest Recruiting's case studies on LinkedIn, so that those very specific people who are already a bit interested now have new nuggets of information to try and bring them back, because perhaps they're in a better moment for that buying cycle. Because once again, we just don't know what we don't know. We don't know whether they were just about to engage and then they got distracted by any one of the many things that can go on in the pre or post-COVID world. So in terms of content for re-engagement, you know, you've got jobs, which is the obvious one, but you've also got blogs, which is great. It's really, really healthy to write blogs, to give, you know, some interesting subject matter to talk about, but it's also great from an SEO point of view, as it will allow you to, you know, really talk about your specific niche, and that will help your ranking in Google. We've got Vlog, right, which is basically video logs. So you'll see quite a few of those on our website. It's great. You can be a little bit more engaging. You can push it to LinkedIn. You can record 50 seconds or a couple of minutes on what's going on, or, you know, a new client that you've onboarded, and why it's wonderful to work for them, and, you know, a landing page with lots of those jobs without mentioning that client, but just talking passionately about the experience. Once again, that's also really good for SEO. So Google is monitoring, you know, what information you're putting on your website, and that's going to help you rank for anything that people might type into Google on the client side or the candidate side. You've got candidate profiles, which is something that you know, we've been doing quite a lot of, which is really identifying, particularly in direct placement, who the real top talent is that you want to work with, and getting their permission to list some information about them on the website. So, you know, we're putting a picture. It's not their picture, it's, you know, stock imagery. We're not going to put their name and address and phone number, but what we are going to do is say, you know, this Android developer implemented an app that had over 1 million installs, or, you know, this accounting and finance representative saved this much money in their client's, you know, taxation piece, or whatever you think is most valuable about that top talent. You can just represent a short profile about them on your site, and then you could, for example, even just reach out to prospective candidate or prospective clients that are hiring on LinkedIn, and just drop that URL in there and say, hey, look, you know, I know you've got positions. I'd really like to talk to you, but also look at this top talent that we have available right now. And once again, it's just it's an easier way of engaging. You're going to get better conversion then. Will you commit to a phone call right now? Will you apply to this job right now? Reviews and case studies are really important. So, you know, talking with your closest clients about why they work with you, why they've had a good experience, and getting that down and representing it on your site will help them on the front end, but it's also a really nice piece that you can use to sort of re-engage and, you know, bring that attention back. And then what we call lead magnets. So lead magnet is something that's sort of a little bit more evolved than a blog. And really it is a way of capturing people's information as a lead. It's an excuse to capture an email address. So one of the best ones in the industry is salary surveys. So I've seen some great salary surveys. We've got clients that have gone through, they've done a little bit of research with their own candidates. They've done a little bit of research on things like Glassdoor and publicly information. And they've basically built, a 5-page PDF, little white paper that explains about the salary brackets and how to really understand what you're worth in, say, the Denver IT market. And they then list that on their website. They optimize that for their SEO. So that if someone types in, what kind of salary should I be expecting in Denver, it's being found. And then in order to download that, you give us your email address. So if someone's having a little think about, am I really being paid what I'm worth? Or, I consider a move, we're providing that information. We're validating the message that, we are really, really good for this very specific niche. But at the same time, we're capturing their email address so that we can bring them back when they are ready to apply for a job. We can market jobs to them and other pieces. And then the final one, which is really important, is referral. All the work that we do to drive this traffic, all this magical stuff we do, the billion-dollar behemoth that, and by we, I mean all of us, not me, the billion-dollar behemoth that is LinkedIn, Indeed, the whole staffing technology industry, the number one source for pretty much every staffing company is referral. So despite all this money we're investing in all this time, referral is huge, and you'll all know that. So anything that you can do to not just ask for referrals on the phone, but to also be asking for them in your content, on your website, in your emails, and rewarding people for those referrals. Obviously, people want to help out their friends, but also, sometimes you have referral programs where you'll pay them a little bonus or buy them something if they if that placement comes through. And all of this, engages with each other, with each element. So, I'm much more likely to give a referral to a company about my friend when I really go, okay, that company is exactly in my friend's niche. That company seems really well informed and has a great website, versus just handing sort of, someone else's contact information to anybody sort of willy-nilly. So some examples, some real world examples. So when we talk about, an apply and onboarding process, right? And people say, okay, well, look, we need to go through and we need to register these candidates. They have to do the hard work because, we're not making enough margin. They're, often earning minimum wage. Completely understand that. But if we move away from, what our staffing types have always done, and we look at what some of the tech industry have done to solve these problems, one of the best areas you can look at is people like Grubhub, Uber, Lyft, Postmates. These are companies that have come in, they've hired some top tech and e-commerce talent, and they've said, right, how do I hire 10,000 drivers in London in 3 months? And that's why you'll notice with something like these guys, they're advertising all over Facebook, Instagram. But if it says, okay, yeah, I want to apply to this job, it's as simple as start earning. The first thing it's doing is capturing their name and email address, their mobile number. It's then got a very, very simple onboarding experience that's mobile optimized and takes them through every element of the process that's important. And then if for any reason they abandon, it's knowing that they started, there was some interest, they did click. So it's then narrowing everything down and focusing all of its re-engagement and retargeting methodologies on those people that started to read, that started to view, or got halfway through an application. It's chasing them to come back. And these are practices that already exist and are evolving in the staffing industry to retarget people that are interested in your jobs, to chase down via email people that get halfway through an application. We do that with a number of our light industrial and healthcare clients where the application process have to be a little bit longer. They get halfway through. We're going to keep following up with them until they complete it. And that's how you kind of really squeeze more juice out of your existing traffic and get the best sort of value for money. So what about when we talk about some of the tech stack pieces that we're talking about? So in terms of integrating, so this is an example of a workflow for one of our clients. So in the middle we've got Bullhorn, and a lot of people will have an ATS, and over here we've got the website that we put together, but within this, we've got all these other pieces. So we've got what are they doing with their job board search? How are they asking for referrals? How are they managing their reputation? What if you've got 2 stars on Google because the only person that ever bothered to fill out feedback on you was that one disgruntled candidate that let you down but couldn't ever get over it? What about pushing to social? What are you doing on your Facebook and your LinkedIn? What about email nurturing? These are all the different elements, that this particular client has put together. So everything is leading back to the yes. Every candidate they're dealing with, every application they're getting is populating that database. And then we're getting as much sort of value as possible out of it by automatically asking for referrals, by automatically reaching out to the candidates that we placed or that got far in the process and asking for a great review. And therefore taking us from 2 negative reviews to 400 amazing reviews so that we're top ranked on Google, or we're top ranked Great Recruiters. We're pushing our jobs out to social as status updates, and we're pushing the blogs out that are on our website and our lead magnets out across different social platforms, and we're automating all of that. So all of these different elements become kind of bigger than the sum of their parts, and all of them relate back to the website. That's where people land when they click the email. That's where people write the review or the review is displayed. That's where people enter the referral. That's where the LinkedIn traffic winds up when it clicks the image that says, look at this great job. But ultimately, it's these different technical elements that are in fact separate that are leading to the traffic and are leading to that conversion. A couple of other quick examples, even just things like quick applies. We've seen quick applies almost double the conversion that we've had on a lot of jobs. So if someone comes through and they want to apply to a job on a mobile device, you may have a really simple apply form. You may just be saying, hey, give us your resume. But if I'm on my cell phone, I'm probably unable to do that, right? iPhones are great, but unless I've got my resume in Google or Dropbox, I don't have the capacity to do that. So with this, I can apply with LinkedIn. I can apply with GitHub. I can apply with Indeed. And that doesn't mean you're paying any of those sources anything. It means that the candidate can use their existing profile to apply to your job on your site without actually leaving. So it's very, very similar to when we talk about that fast user experience, log in with Google. You've ever been to a website and it says log in with Google or log in with Facebook and you're like, oh, that's so much easier. Think about Apple Pay, right? How much easier is it to spontaneously buy things because you can do it with 2 clicks versus having to pull out your credit card, go and find your wallet, enter all this information. It's all these little increments. It's a game of inches to try and optimize that conversion. So making it easier for the candidate to quickly apply with a profile they've already created is going to optimize that conversion. So anyway, I've done a lot of talking as per normal, and I want to leave a bit of time for questions. So, just to summarize, the basics here. The most important thing is to, get jobs on your site and make sure that they index in Google and in other free sources. This is how we take a website that gets 50 visitors a month and get it to 1,300 applications sort of overnight, is just making sure that all this information is visible to where the candidates live, which is in places like Indeed, in places like LinkedIn, in places like Facebook, and in places like Google. You can't expect people that don't know you to arrive on your homepage and apply to your jobs. It's the easiest way to drive and convert traffic, and we'll talk about that a little bit at the end. Focus on reviews, reputation, and case studies. So, making sure that everything about your website is talking about what a great experience you had as a candidate, what a great experience you had as a client. That is the ultimate benefit. Everything else about your process is just a feature. The ultimate place we want to focus on the benefit, and the best way to validate that benefit is people talking about not only the fact that they got a job or that they made loads of hires, but it was super efficient. It was a great experience. It was more cost effective than everywhere else. Write or purchase good, relevant niche content. Make sure that your website is talking about where you specialize. Make sure that you do specialize, whether it's by location, by industry, or by a mix, and make sure that it's relevant to the pieces that you do. And then on top of that, ensure that this is integrating with your email and your social wherever possible. So you're not in a position where it's just sort of limited. You're investing all this money in writing really good content and then it only lives on your site. It's like $5 a month to push that out to LinkedIn via Sendable. It can be like $25 a month just to do an email blast once a month to everyone in your ATS. Now there's way more expensive versions that do way more sophisticated things, but even just the basics are affordable and very important. So what about a summary of anyone that's going, well, look, Jack, this is interesting, but I'm already bought all of this and I have been for a handful of years. Where do I go next? So this is where you really want to focus on automated workflows that retarget and re-engage. So identifying what pieces of your site traffic is important, based on what elements of your site are important. So the obvious one that comes to mind is anyone that we think might be a client, and then retargeting them and re-engaging them to bring them back and try and get them to have that conversation. It's taking something to be more sophisticated than let's just email everyone in our database and newsletter once a month, which is an important thing to do if you're not doing, and with some jobs and some information, but really start to serve different messages and different content to different people at different times. So if you look at something like Herefish, that Bullhorn bought and is a key partner of ours and is now being implemented to lots of people, they will reach out and wish people happy birthday on their birthday. They'll tell them, where they need to go for their job automatically. You can literally turn around and go, take anyone in my database that has made it to third interview but didn't get placed, but we have spoken to in the last 180 days, but not spoken to in the last 60 days, and send them this sequence of emails. And it's not a one-time thing. People drop in and out of that workflow all the time. So if I had spoken to them 59 days ago, tomorrow they would get that. If today I log a note, they're on another 60-day cycle. So it's continuing automations that are very sophisticated in what they do. It's mobile and video first. So, make sure that you're really engaging with a mobile optimized site that's easy to view on mobile. It's not messy. Otherwise people will immediately leave. It's easy to do what you want them to do on mobile. We've all had that experience, even every now and then with some major apps, but certainly when apps first came out, where suddenly there was a button that was hit another button and you couldn't submit the form, and it's absolutely infuriating. It's also, video is just really important as you go to the future. It's just a really easy way of engaging people, and it's sort of great from an SEO point of view, whether it's just an engaging video on your homepage or whether it's some video, vlogs about your clients, about your experience. Video reviews are absolutely brilliant, and they add that personal element, and candidates will love doing them as well. Focus on the user journey and experience. So at every level of the site, we're segmenting those users where they need to go, understanding which part of the site they're on and why they're there. So think of, even just your homepage, it's like a deck of cards. It's all the different sliding doors of possibilities of where they're going to wind up. And you're making it very, very clear to take certain users that want certain information in one direction and other users in another direction, so that people can get the experience that they want. Progressive profiling and funnels, which is kind of what we're talking about, are really about understanding those candidates and then building their information slowly so that we're taking each one of those sort of 10 steps. And then wherever possible, providing instant answers and feedback. So, if you expect me, even as a sort of maybe light industrial candidate, to give 10 minutes worth of information to you, at the end of it, tell me that I'm going to get a call and let me book that call, or, promise me that I'm going to get a response and automate that. Let's make sure that it's not always this sort of information black hole. So yeah, I think we're at about 40 or so minutes. And any time or any questions.
Jamie, you're on mute.
Sorry.
I think I'm struggling
Sorry
to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can now, yeah, sorry.
Okay, so sorry. Sorry about that. I was on mute. I thought I clicked it. So our first question, if you guys have any questions, please enter them in the chat box. I will go ahead and direct them directly to Jack. He's going to answer them now. So go ahead and get to type in. Sean is asking, what is the best way to drive initial engagement for clients on your website?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? You broke up for a second.
What is the best way to drive initial engagement for clients on your website?
So I think case studies is probably the number one. If you've really got something that's going to talk about an amazing experience that similar clients have had in that niche market, I think that's really, really validating. The other one is some sort of sophisticated lead magnet. So getting super niche into what you do and trying to give advice to the pain that they have. So think about when you're pitching to your clients, what pain you're leaning into, what challenges they have, and building articles on that. And then basically making sure you're monitoring who's viewing those articles, you're pushing those articles to social, and that you are, if possible, if people want more information, the right calls to action to either capture a lead or just to capture an email address. Some of our best websites at the very top don't have client solutions and open jobs. They have, a super engaging lead magnet for clients and a super engaging lead magnet for candidates, something that would be really informative to the individual. And then, I've got to put my email address in to read it, but we still get very, very good conversion. So I think that's a sort of great top of the funnel piece. It's also possible to up the funnel a little bit and focus less just on jobs and maybe position an evaluation. No one wants to hear, oh, we'll do a free, with no fee staffing. It's like, that's what everyone does. But if you can move up the funnel and do, an audit of their recruiting process, as a value add, or if you can move up the funnel and go, I'll help with an audit of your technology systems. What a great way to have a true unique selling point in our industry, and pitch something that is of value. But what I would say is, if you do that, follow through with it, right? Let's not bait and switch and just turn it into a sales pitch. You need to have something that's gonna do a little bit more, help the word get out there, and then maybe it's really summarize what that best looks like and how much work goes into it. And of course, you can qualify people if they're not the right fit for it. If they go fill in the form, you say, well, you guys are making 5 hires a year, we're not going to invest time in that. That's sort of fine too, and you can have that conversation.
Perfect. From Adam says, thank you for doing this. We just revamped our website, commercial business funding, and these are great tips to follow up with folks who almost fill out the application. Great info.
Okay.
So that's awesome. I will have to say that I think that the biggest thing is, the first thing for anybody to do is to start an audit and attempt their process for applications, and then from there be able to figure out how you can streamline some of the processes in which direction to go. Is that the best?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it makes sense to have a think about trying to put yourself in the mind of a candidate on your website, or even ask a friend, right? I'm sure we've all been sat in the bar trying to explain what we do to people.
Yes.
And, if you think it's hard when you're trying to explain staffing to people that don't know staffing, imagine trying to explain staffing technology to people that don't know staffing. So if you just go and find a friend and go, look, just imagine that you're interested in this, and go and do this process for me and time it, and let me know how difficult it was. Or go to my website, to a friend that doesn't know what you do, and go, actually, let's do an experiment. Go to my website and you try and tell me if you know what we do. That's a really, really good way of trying to understand, are we clear about the value we offer, the service we offer, and our niche.
Okay, perfect. Gustavo says, how important is the process versus the tools?
So the two really go hand in hand. I'm not going to sort of dodge that question, but the tools really limit what you can do with the process. We always say that it's a journey. So I've had clients where they go, look, right now we're at a 2 and we want to go straight to a 9. And I'm like, that's like, telling me that you're climbing a ladder and you're on the 2nd step and you want to go straight to the 9th step. You're just going to fall and we're all going to get hurt. You need to sort of climb each step as you go through. It's impossible. That workflow that I showed earlier on in the presentation, that sometimes it almost overwhelms people a little bit, but no one goes to this overnight, right? You start with what's the quickest win and where do we go next? So for some people, the quickest win might be just getting a decent sitemap out and getting some jobs on our website with some quick applies and starting to build some traffic. For other people, they might already be doing that and they might be going, okay, cool. We're already pushing to social. We're already driving traffic. We've already got an email automation system. Now we really need to think about, where we go with that content, how we make it more engaging. Then we need to think about reputation management and how we start to ask people for referrals, or any of those concepts.
Perfect. And then I noticed you guys, I know you're partnered with Bullhorn, but do you guys work with obviously multiple ATS systems, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we work with hundreds of different organizations in terms of integration. So loads of job boards, loads of aggregators, loads of ATSs. And we'll basically integrate with anyone and anything if they will integrate with us, which these days most of the third parties allow us to do. So, there's the odd challenge if you're on a self-hosted version of just about anything from BondAdapt to Avionte, where it sits, on location in your office. that is difficult to integrate with. But just about any other third parties will integrate with. Off the top of my head, it's the PC Recruiters, Crelates, Tracker RMS, Job Adder, or everything within the Bullhorn environment, as in they keep on buying everyone. So Talent Rover, Job Science,
Yes.
Salesforce, Sugar CRM, some of the nationals that aren't sort of applicant tracking specific, Crelate's another big one. But all the time we get, ATSs that come along that maybe have 50 customers, and we'll build that integration. The nice thing for us is that jobs out and candidates in are pretty much the two most crucial pieces for an ATS. So it's generally, not easy to do, but able on pretty much any platform.
So Jack, this is Paula. Quick
Hey,
question.
Paula.
I know I saw you last week. Great seeing you. So from a business development perspective in sales and marketing,
Yes.
our site where we're at today with Everest, a combination of the Google reviews that we're getting, that we're adding to the site through, trying to organically grow and be a top provider when somebody searches for us. What else do you recommend, or is what we're doing sufficient? What else can we do outside of what we're doing with our website with you guys currently?
Absolutely. So I think expanding the amount of content is important. So, we've seen some clients where they go from, writing 2 things a month to writing 10, 15 things a month, and just being all over every search they can rank for in Google, but then also pushing that to social really heavily works very well. The other thing that is sort of emerging, which we can talk about offline, but I had some really interesting conversations today about things like lead forensics that allow you to start to understand who's looking at your site so you can be more proactive with them. But there's actually some really sophisticated versions that are coming out for our industry that will not just tell you who's looking at your site, but also who's viewed your content, looked at your LinkedIn profile, and who that person is, and what open jobs they have available, so that you can start to be a lot more proactive in the way that you're engaging with people. And then I think the final thing is just to really try and look at taking that nurturing probably to the next step. So, getting those emails out, not on an ad hoc basis or on a mass blast basis, but starting to make sure that we're serving the right content to the right people at the right time, which is quite a process to set up and certainly a lot more expensive. But those are probably the next evolutions of where we'll look to go with you guys in the next year or so.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then just for clarification, we have an Aviante rep on the phone, on the call. He said the Bold product is cloud-based and able to integrate with a number of different tools for candidate engagement, whether it's job postings, sensing, etc. So
yeah, absolutely. We partner with Aviante and we have integrations with Bold. It's just purely self-hosted. And that's a challenge that Bond and, RDB in the UK and everyone else has, just when it's not, connected to the web all the time. It's a sort of security thing that's a bit of a challenge, but I'm sure my understanding is that most people are moving across to Bold and the latest version. What's the latest version of Aviante called after Bold, the new release?
Waiting for an answer.
We're not come to me in time.
Oh, it's just called Bold. It's just
it's
Bold.
Just called Bold. Okay, there was
Okay.
another one coming up. Maybe that is that Bold one, but yeah, so awesome.
Okay. Perfect. Does anybody else have any additional questions they'd like to ask? Okay, perfect. Just want to say thank you so much, Jack, for doing the call for us today. I've actually learned a lot myself of what I'd like to do going forward, so I appreciate that. I do want to invite everybody to join us we're having another webinar next week, next Thursday, November 5th at 3:30 p.m. It's going to be 5 messaging mistakes you must fix today. It's going to be a great webinar. I'm super excited to attend. I hope you'll go to the Florida Staffing Association website, check us out, consider becoming a member if you're not already, and enjoy some of these great, amazing webinars that we're having right now. Everybody's saying thank you so much, great content. So excellent job, Jack.
Awesome.
We
Thank
greatly
you, guys.
appreciate it.
Really appreciate it too, and hopefully one day we'll be back in Florida to all hang out again, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thanks so much, guys. See you later.
Everybody have a great day.
Take care.